Welcome to Project 1090, 1975 Pontiac Firebird. What's been going on? She's torn apart. Let's go take a look and see what's been going on. So as you can see, I have the fender off, the inner fender off, and a bunch of stuff missing under here. And that would be mainly the heater core box. And that is why this is all ripped apart, because that heater core started leaking on me the end of last summer. So I had to get it out of there, and I plan on putting a vintage air system in here. So I'm just going to patch these holes up for now, and I should be done under here. I already cleaned up some of the wiring, figured out the factory oil pressure gauge and coolant temp sensor gauge, got those wires traced and made sure they were functioning properly, and found out that the problem with the gauges was at the cluster. So I'll get those gauges in there and swapped from the aftermarket gauge set that I have in there. That was all manual. So need to finish up on that. I'm going to do new plug wires, new plugs, fix that oil leak there, patch that hole there, and that hole there, and that box there, and then mess around with that flap a little bit, get it to close. So yeah, that's about it for up front here. Let's take a walk around. We'll stop at the trunk and see what I got going on there. So here I got just a couple of panels. Got under the steering wheel panel, A-pillar panel, I forget where that one went. Glove box door, got the cluster here, got the light switch. I want to show you something on the light switch because that took me a while to figure it out, how to get this thing out of your dash. So you need to pull the knob off of it first, and it's not as easy as just yanking on it. You don't want to do that, you'll break it. What you have to do is reach underneath the dash, and you have to push this little button right here. Focus. Right there, that button with the spring on it. You have to hold that button in and pull out that knob there, and then you can unscrew this screw that I marred up pretty good. It was already marred up by the previous owner too, but I made it a little worse. Then you unscrew that, and then this will get this off of your bezel. So yeah, I fought with that for quite a while. And then just your washer, switch, cigarette lighter, cluster, glove box door. You can figure out how to get that off. It's not too hard. Kind of got to unbolt it and twist it out of there and whatever. So that's about it for that. Let's go take a look on the driver's side here. Alright, so inside I have the whole dash out of here. A lot of other stuff. I had to take the center console out. That's in the back seat. Drop the steering wheel down. And man, that thing was a pain. But as you can see, I got all the wiring labeled. That's just what I like to do. I don't like to guess, and I know I'll be under here some more. I do plan on replacing the wiring harness eventually and going with some normal new style fuses and just updating everything in here. But I went through and traced most of the wiring, labeled most of it. There's a couple of connectors in here that I don't know what they are. So maybe I'll go through this harness with you guys just in case you have a wire that you wonder what it goes to, and I have it labeled here. So I guess we'll start over here with your washer and your headlight. So looks like that, 3 in a row and then one little outlier there. That's your washer. Looks like a blue with a black wire, light blue with the white, and another black wire. Yeah, black with the white was the other one. But then we got your headlight harness. I didn't label that one because that's kind of funky, and that can only go in one place. So this goes up over the back side of your dash, and it's held in with these weird clips. I'll show you those when we look at the dashboard in the basement. I got that being repaired right now. So that's about it for those wires. There is a ground wire that is right there that is attached to the back of your dashboard that you have to remove to get the dash out. And another pain, which I suggest you do first, is your e-brake release cable. Yeah, I struggled with that, getting that off. I have a C-clamp on there right now holding this in position so I could get the tension released on the cable to get it off of there, and that was a pain, and I did that last while the dash was dangling there, so it wasn't easy. So I suggest do that first, and it's the biggest pain of all of this, and you'll be good to go. So don't forget your ground wire, that cable, those two harnesses, headlight, washer, and this is to your cluster, and that's pretty self-explanatory where that goes. And then the next wire coming off of this harness is a light bulb, and I have that for the heater switch, so that will go into the back of your heater controls so you can see them when your lights are on. So that's like a switched light. When you turn your lights on, these are illumination bulbs. Anything with a gray wire is an illumination bulb for something on your dash. And if we follow that down, it splits off up here, and it goes to mainly your radio wires, and then there's another gray wire, which is the illumination to your shifter. And that's a pretty long gray wire. That's the longest gray wire that you have in there, and it has this little ground clip on there. You just clip that ground clip to the bottom of the shifter under here and put your bulb up in there. So another gray wire. And I guess we'll go to the radio harness next here. There's two harnesses coming off of here. There's one harness with a gray wire and a yellow wire, and this gray wire is for your radio illumination, and the red wire is for your radio. I believe that's the radio constant, because this is that yellow wire that should be connected to that harness, and this is what the previous owner had already done. They clipped this wire and had it to the red wire on the back of the harness. So I forget, I always get it mixed up if the red wire is the constant or the yellow wire is the constant coming from a newer radio. Back in the day, whatever, that was the constant and the red is the constant, or if it's vice versa, whatever. So this yellow wire is whatever this one isn't. So if this is the switched, I believe, the switched power to turn your radio on when you turn the key forward. And I have this ran to the fuse box, and it goes to the radio. And that is the guy who previously owned this had a speaker wire here doing this job. So I just put this back the way it was. I didn't bother testing any wires here to hook up the radio. I just figured I would hook it up back the way he had it hooked up. So I'm assuming that this harness that's coming off of here would be some other wires that I need. The ground wire, I do have a separate ground wire coming off of the radio harness, and I just bolted that up down here somewhere. So I didn't really take the time to test this and see what it is. So if you know what it is, if this is the radio harness and what these wires are, I have a black wire here. I'm going to assume that that's the ground, a brown wire and a white wire. So maybe these are two different types of power. Maybe one's, I don't know. I don't know what they are. Someone else, if they know, maybe they'll tell me. So let's see what else we have here. That takes care of that radio harness. That's just speaker wire, not factory speaker wire. So I don't know, maybe two of these wires are speaker wire, and this wire is the switched. I don't know. Could be Could be because I believe there was only one speaker in here, and that was the one up under the dash, which is completely destroyed. And I don't know where the harness is for that, where it went. No clue. So the other wires on here. So we went up the T to the radio up there, and the wires that come off of here. I have two harnesses here that I have no idea where they go to, or I just didn't label them. Maybe they went to the heater box or something, or for AC. I really don't know. I don't think they were attached to anything. When I ripped the dash apart, I tried to label everything as I took it off. So I don't know what these are. If you know what they are, I got a green wire, red wire, and a black wire, 3 in a row. And we got a brown wire, a green wire, and a black wire on that one. 3, don't know. And what we got there, we got the voltmeter, got an orange wire and a black wire for your voltmeter. And then we have the fuel gauge. So this will be right behind your cluster, on the right side of your cluster. Fuel gauge looks like that. And then another gray wire, the bulb on it. And that is your gauge illumination. And some other wires we got coming off there. This one I don't know. I didn't really... I think that one was unplugged. Wasn't plugged into anything. Didn't know where it went. So, if you know, let me know. Black with a... or orange with the black stripe, a black, and a white. And then there's this really long one coming off of there, and that goes to your door jamb switch. So your light turns on when you open the door, your little dome light. So that's what that looks like. And this wire is run up inside behind your dash, and it is held in by those weird clips that I was talking about over there, which look like this. And there's a couple of these under there, and different shapes and different sizes. So you got to take these off. You got to get up under the dash, find where your wires are run, and find all of these little things and get them off before you rip the dash off. Otherwise you're going to be pulling on the wires. So, and I'll show you on the dash where those go a little bit later. So that about takes care of the wires other than these. Oh man, I forgot about these. So we have another gray wire with a bulb, and that's for your cigarette lighter. And these all come off of the same little pigtail harness there. And this orange wire with the black line and the weird kind of rounded oval connector, that's for your cigarette lighter positive. That goes straight onto the back of the cigarette lighter on a post on the back of it. And the black wire is your cigarette negative, and that goes onto the little negative terminal on the back of the cigarette lighter. So that is that radio harness. I have got some of those kick panels with the speaker holes in them, and I guess they're okay. They're kind of flimsy. They're pretty chintzy. They're really glossy. I mean, they just have a sheen to them. And you know, I know the rest of the vinyl and plastic in here is old, and you kind of can't really tell in the video how much more gloss it has on it, but yeah, you're gonna notice it. You're gonna see it. So whatever, I think I'm gonna use them either way. I gotta try to fit them in there and see how that's gonna go. Might do a video on that. I might have to do a spacer and router, a little piece to give me a little more room there, and get that on there somehow. But yeah, that's about it for under here. Once I get that done and get the dash repaired, then we can get her back together. Yep. let's take a look outside. So I did a compression test before I ripped everything apart. So let's take a look at what we got there. That's cylinder 1, 145, cylinder 2, 135, 3, 145, 4, 135, 145. Well, you can read. So 7 and 8 at 125, it's pretty low, but you know, I know this engine is old. It has about 120,000 miles on it, and I know she's not too healthy, so I have an engine in the shed that I'm going to rebuild. Just need this one to get me down the road for now while I'm doing that, so not too concerned about it, but I'm going to put some new plugs in it because these were not looking good. So, oh, focus, there we go. Well, this side wasn't too bad, but still not good. Fouled out. That one's pretty bad. Yeah. So, looks like it was running a little lean, but I'm gonna put some new plugs in it, see what happens. Again, I just got this engine and I didn't pull the plugs, I didn't put new wires on it, I didn't put a new distributor in it, I did nothing to it. I got it like this. And yeah, let's talk about that elephant in the room, the yellow alternator. That came with the car too. Don't ask me why, I don't know, but it works, so it's staying there for now. And again, my last video, I did the walk around. Everything is painted black. Everything, the door jambs, the wiring, the washer tank, it's black. So they just went to town under here. The brake booster, you know, the master, it's all peeling off on there, but all the wire looms, everything, it has a thick coat of black paint on it. And yeah, it's kind of a mess. But yeah, a little dusty in here. I want to vacuum that out, get it all cleaned up. But yeah, she gets down the road, so that's all I really care about. I might cut these out and maybe get some air underneath there. I don't know. What do you think? I'm not going to really make it a true Ram Air. I don't really know. This is a Chevy 350, and I don't know if the Pontiac 350s, if the factory setup put the air cleaner things, I could do some custom stuff to get it air flowing through in there and out there, but I don't know if I want to do that. So I don't know. Let me know. Should I cut those out and just get some air underneath there, or leave them the way they are? I don't know. But I got this screen that has all this overspray over it, just primer, overspray everywhere, so I might try to clean that up. But let's take a look at the rust. I forgot to talk about that in the walk around video. So this is very strange. I've never really seen anything rust right here before, and nowhere else. The lips are fine. The bottom of this fender is fine. You know, I'm in the Midwest, and usually it rusts down there and all over there and everything. And this car is from New Mexico, and there's rust right here, or something happened there. But this has all been cut out, and they put Bondo in here, and then a metal, not even sheet metal, like sheet aluminum piece off of your siding or something in here, and then Bondoed over it and other things. I found some solder in there, and yeah, Bondoed it again and painted it, and yeah, it popped out of there. And it's just very strange because there's nothing else wrong with any other part of this fender. That fender does have some rot right up in there, and it also has a patch like this one on it that hasn't popped out yet, and I don't think it's as bad as this one, but it's very strange to me. You let me know if you're from the Southwest, if this is a common place for something to rust out, or even if this is an F-body thing, Firebird thing. I've just never, I don't understand. Somebody tell me. So yeah, this shroud is all chewed up, so I'm gonna want to fix on that. Like to get maybe the Camaro set up on here, because this on the Pontiac you have to take the radiator up with this whole shroud unit, and you got to get the fan off to do that. So you got to reach around in there and get your hands in there and try to get those bolts out, and it just doesn't feel good. And yeah, because this is all one piece. So I think the Camaro ones have that plate that goes right over here, and this plastic part is a two-piece where you can take that plate off and the top one off, and then you can get to the bolts to that fan if you need to get the fan off of there. So yeah, I'm gonna have to mess with that and get a new one. But yeah, that's about all I've been doing. So let's go take a look in the man cave and take a look at that dashboard and see what kind of repairs I'm doing to that. Alright, welcome to the man cave. Let's take a look at this dash and see what we have going on here. See what kind of repairs we're doing. So, show you how I basically used this stuff here and some plastic bonder JB Weld to fix some of this dash stuff. All this is a gutter guard. I ripped this off of my house, and it's just plastic. It's flexible. It's got some holes in it. This is just a part of it on the side, so this is some little stiffer stuff. And this is just what I had laying around. I needed some filler material to kind of get this thing back together. And you know, whatever. I'm gonna warn you right now, this is some sloppy stuff here that I have going on here, but this dash is pretty destroyed, so I'm just kind of buying myself some time getting this thing back together. I could have done this a lot neater, a lot nicer, but again, whatever. I want to be able to drive this car to seasons. You know, we're already into the season and the thing is still apart. I need to get it going so I can drive it this year, just a little bit. So let's take a look at the areas that I had to repair, what I did, the methods that I used. You can use them, you cannot, you know, but it worked for me. It got the job done. My stuff isn't going to be flopping around in here and only held in by one bolt anymore. So let's take a look here. I had to repair this area here, and a lot of the pieces were missing. Like there's a whole big triangle out of here that was missing, and I only had one little spot where it was actually touching for a reference. So I was able to get this lined up properly and clamp this. And then what I did is I measured from bolt hole center to center and made a brace so it would hold this in place while I repaired this, because this was really floppy when this was broken. And I would say if you're removing your dash and you haven't yet, that's the area that you want to be really, really careful with, especially if your dash is really brittle like this one, because I was taking this thing off and, you know, there were a couple of places that were cracking and making all sorts of noise, and this thing is really, it's in really bad shape, really rough. So again, just trying to get a little bit more life out of it until I can find a new one. But yeah, 8 3/8 center to center if you want to make a brace for it. I would suggest that if you're doing this and you do have damage here, is to pull the whole column out of there and make this brace and bolt this on, you know, as you're slowly pulling this out of here. So when you go to get the whole thing out of there, you're not breaking more stuff on it. So I'll flip this around. We'll get a closer look on the back side. The whole back of this was also busted off, so there was a lot missing on this area. It was a major repair. And then there's a couple of areas inside of here for a couple of these for the gauge mounts and the heater controls and the cigarette lighter mount. So some of these bosses were busted off. I don't know, is that what you call them, bosses? That's what I call them. Just little areas, you know, the raised areas where your bolts and screws go through to hold this stuff in. this whole middle area for the cigarette lighter was completely busted off, so I had to completely recreate this mounting area. And then some of these were just cracked a little bit, so I just kind of went over them a little bit, just went around them with a little bit of the plastic epoxy. I have some washers in here. Some of these needed to be spaced to get the gauges to line up properly on the bezel, and it just looks weird to you. It is weird. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Um, but yeah, just repairs, your basic plastic braking repairs. This whole area was broken. You can see some of the white of this gutter guard that I glued into there. So let's get this thing flipped around and we'll take a look at it from the back side, get a little better idea of the process that I used to make this happen. Alright, we'll start over here on the glove box area, and it wasn't too bad. We were just missing a piece right here, and I basically just, you know, cut out a piece of this and glued it into there with the plastic epoxy, and then I threw the glove box area back in there and re-drilled the hole for it, and it seems to be pretty sturdy. It's not going anywhere. Again, it's holding the glove box in, and there's, you know, whenever 8 other screws holding it in, so it's not, doesn't have to be too sturdy in there. This other stuff though got pretty complicated, and I basically just built up layers of this plastic epoxy and used some of that gutter and just kind of glued it in there with the epoxy, and then just layered it and layered it and layered it. So this probably took like 10 layers for me to build all of this up, and it probably didn't look like this, you know, new. It was probably just really thin and it wasn't solid like this, but I just filled it in and made it one whole big nice area, because this is a pretty weak point too on this dash. So yeah, it doesn't look pretty, but you don't see any of this, so I don't really care. And what I used kind of as a form, you know, I kind of saw it as concrete, and I used a straw for this hole. I kind of got a general idea of where I wanted, you know, this boss to be, and I just used a straw, and that kind of held the epoxy in place and helped me build it up a little better. This one, it just did a little bit of epoxy around it. This boss was completely missing out of here, so again I had to use some of that plastic and just kind of glue it in place with the epoxy, and then build it up and build it up, build it up. And I stuck a straw in there, and I stuck it through because it had to have a mounting area on this other side. So I basically bolted the heater controls in here, and then stuck the straw in there till it touched the mounting area tab, and epoxied it in there, let it dry, and then I took the controls off and then built it up around it. So, you know, again, you can do it as nice and neat as you want. This is just my sloppiness in here on a really bad dash, and I'll show you why I think this dash is, you know, as bad as it is. There's something on it that I don't think I'm going to be able to fix, but this area, you know, I could sand this all down and make it look pretty, but you don't really see it. I might sand the front side of it. I think you're going to be able to see a little bit of the front lip of this, but the rest of this, your cluster is on here, and it's covering this up. Same with underneath here. I did a really sloppy job on that, but you know, it's impatience and whatever, but you don't see it, so I don't really care. But I mean, this was a huge area that was just completely missing out of here, and I just kind of filled it in with this stuff, and it seems to be fairly sturdy. I can squeeze on it and it's not breaking, so I'm pretty happy with the results. Lots of other, you know, bosses that were half missing, broken off, and I found too that I could, if there was a boss that was half missing, I could put the screw in there and then put the epoxy around the screw and let it dry, and I was able to unscrew the screw without it messing this up. So instead of having to just fill it in and drill a hole in there and re-tap it, I was able to just put the screw right in there and epoxy over it. And I think I did the same thing with this up here. I just put the screw in there and it ended up unscrewing back out. So yeah, that is what is going on with that. And the reason why I think this dash is so bad is this top edge right here is really warped, and it looks really bad when it's in the car. So I mean, you can just see the dip that this thing takes here, and yeah, it doesn't look good in there. It doesn't line up good. It's very wavy, and you know, I don't know. I don't know if it's savable. Got a huge crack in here. This is all, I mean, it is brittle to the touch. I could poke my finger right through this right now if I wanted to. So it's in pretty rough shape. So whatever, if I can do this, get it to not rattle and all my stuff to not flop around anymore, then I'll be happy for the time being. So let's take a look at this bezel. Now, if you have a formula, the formula has the wood grain on it, and if you had the Trans Am, it had the engine turned on it. So this one had the wood grain, and it was all peeling off of there. So I decided it would be cool if I could get a different wood grain on there. So I'll let that be a surprise what wood grain I'm going to go with, but I found a company that might be able to get a decal on this or a wrap on it of my selected wood grain. So I ended up going to a media blasting place and blasting this, and that was difficult. If anybody else has done this before, the graphics that are on here, I'm not sure how they were installed on here, but it was very difficult to get off of there. The place that I brought it to does sand and glass, and the glass bead wasn't doing anything to get that wood grain off of there. So he did have a cabinet that he only used, and it was some sort of plastic beads or something in there, and that got it off of there. And then it didn't get the rust off that was underneath it, so then I used the glass to get the rust off. And then after that I brought it home, and 30 minutes later it flashed. So if you have peeling underneath there, it's probably because there's rust underneath there, and it's coming up and pushing that decal or however that was on there off of there. So I had issues with that. If you blast it, obviously don't sandblast it. This is really thin metal. You're gonna warp it. You need to use something else to get it off of there. I tried using chemicals before that, some stripper, and that did not work. So it was really difficult to get that off of there. So if you do media blast it and get that off of there, and there was rust underneath it, I highly suggest getting some sort of rust inhibitor on it right away. Otherwise, you're going to end up doing what I had to do and going back to the media blast place and paying more money to blast it again. So yeah, get it covered right away. So what you see here, I did a rust inhibitor coat on here. I think it was like the Duplicolor Stop Rust or something like that. And then I used some Rust-Oleum Rusty Primer on top of that. So the finish turned out pretty good. I need to have a little bit of body work to do. I'm going to wet sand it. There's a little dent there. I should have probably tried to get that out prior to painting it, but I might leave it. I don't know. But we'll see. Hopefully the graphics turn out good on it. And I got some new rings, couple new rings. So that's where I'm at with that. Once I get this all dried up, I'm going to do a couple more things on here, and then whatever, we'll get her installed. So that is it. We'll see you shortly. See you next time. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.